Hello, everybody, and welcome to the NPFL's Roundtable, the podcast where we talk about the NPFL with the folks who are in the NPFL and making the headlines. And I'm your host, Ken Duke. I'm excited because we're about to kick off the 2026 NPFL season with Stop 1 at the Harris Chain of Lakes in Central Florida. The Harris Chain of Lakes is a legendary body of water. We're going to get more into that in tomorrow evening's show on Monday. But just know it has been the host of many tournaments, an NPFL tournament back in the inaugural season of 2021. But just kick things off here, I want to talk a little bit about the incredible field that you're going to be watching in 2021 on the NPFL tour. There are 117 anglers. Alphabetically, they range from Baron Adams to David Wooten. It includes favorites from the beginning of the NPFL, guys like Timmy Reams and Hunter Boggeman. It includes other standouts like Patrick Walters and Greg Hackney. And it includes some new, old, famous faces that you've seen before, maybe on other trails. And I know you're going to be excited to see them fishing with the NPFL, guys like Rick Clunn. It's going to be an amazing year. This is a star-studded field. I believe it is the most star-studded, the most name recognition of any circuit in bass fishing today. These guys are wildly accomplished. Not only are they wildly accomplished in the history of the NPFL, but these folks have been to 229 Bassmaster Classics in their career, and they've won 7. Clunn's won 4. You got Hank Cherry, he's won 2. This is a very, very impressive field of anglers. And we're going to kick off Roundtable, though, with a couple of local favorites on the Harris Chain. We got Tim Frederick, who lives in Leesburg, the host city here at the Harris Chain. And we're going to follow him up with Joey Bloom, one of the youngest anglers on our tour. And Joey calls the Harris Chain his favorite body of water. So we know that this tournament is not nearly over until these guys have weighed in. They're going to be a factor out there. And let's kick it off right now. Very excited about this guest. He is a longtime Floridian. In fact, since he was 4 years old, born in Kentucky, but been in the Sunshine State since he was 4 years old, catching bass ever since. This man has won an FLW Tour event in the state of Florida, spent 7 years in the FLW Tour. Last year was his first year in the NPFL, and this season starts in his backyard. Let's welcome Tim Frederick. Tim, thank you for joining us on Roundtable.
Hey, thank you, Ken. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely my pleasure, man. Would not think about doing a Roundtable at Harris Chain without bringing you in. You are the man on the Harris Chain, and I got so much to ask you. Let me start with this. How excited were you when you saw the schedule come out and boom, right there, stop number 1, Harris Chain?
Oh, I'm pretty excited. I mean, there's no doubt having it in your own backyard. It's my playground that I've been on for 40 something years. So I'm pretty excited about it. I'm optimistic at the same time because historically I haven't had the best finishes here, but it's a different year.
Well, you're a smart guy. You're a super smart guy. You got to have that cautious optimism. I've seen so many bass pros crash and burn because they get too high. And, you talk about having some disappointments in your backyard. I think that's every bass pro. Every bass pro in history has had his ups and downs on his home water. And I recently been studying the track records of the 119 pros who are going to be launching on Thursday morning. And what I saw, Tim, kind of surprised me. Nobody is just rock solid every derby there. Nobody. They'll have their ups and they'll have their crash and burns. Is that your history as well?
It is. It really is. And I blame that on Florida strain bass. Like I was saying, it's all the major tournaments that come here usually during the spawn, 90% of them.
Sure.
And in the spawn, you get a lot of cold fronts or just a lot of frontal conditions, and it changes the way these fish act. And man, you could be on the best practice and have as many sight fish as you wanted. You go the next day with a little temperature change and a little bit of barometric pressure drop, they're gone. I just feel like bass in Florida love consistent weather. They got to have some consistency to them. It looks like our weather's setting up pretty good, so I feel like it'll be a pretty good derby.
That's fantastic. Now, you talked about all the Florida tournaments are usually front loaded in the season. We see a lot of January, February tournaments. And in looking back at the history of the other leagues in Florida, Harris Chain always gets hit in January, February, not very often in March. And this is mid-March. Is that going to make a difference?
100% it will. The fish, judging by what I know and from the water temperatures of the lakes that I've fished around here, the water is warming really fast. Typically, there's still some fish spawning right now. We're on the tail end of it, but as that water climbs fast every day, I'm not saying they won't spawn, but they'll pull in and pull out in a day, where normally they'll be there for 3 or 4 days to a week if left alone. It's not the case anymore. But here's the other thing. It's such an odd time, but I love it because it's going to have a bunch of options. You're going to have possibly shad spawn. You're going to possibly have bluegill spawn, and we're on a new moon during that tournament. So either brim beds, shad spawn, potentially some spawning fish, but I'm not putting a lot of eggs in that basket. There's 3 ways you can catch them, but obviously most of them are going to be post spawn, so they'll be looking to eat, I think.
Now, if you're watching or listening from another part of the country, Tim and I are well aware that you've had some seriously nasty cold weather this year. But what you may not know is Tim and I in Florida have had some wickedly cold weather. We've had a lot of days below freezing here. Tim, I can't remember a winter this severe in Florida. Is that going to be a big deal for how this tournament sets up?
Well, I think we're at that time in March where everything's starting to catch up with itself. We had a cold, very cold winter for Florida standards, so the fish were behind, so to speak. But I feel like on the last moon and the moon before, I feel like a lot of the spawning got done then. That's why I think 90% of them have already spawned, but it will make a difference. But now, it's like, hurry up, spawn's over. Here comes the bluegills. It's kind of a perfect storm. It really could be a really fun tournament. I think a lot of people should catch them.
I'm sure they will. Although what you just said reminds me of something our friend Denny Brower once told me when he was retiring. I said, "What are you looking forward to most in retirement?" And he said, "I will never have to go to Florida again." and it's always I can't say it amazed me. I guess I've heard it so many times like you have. There's so many guys who just hate Florida because the Florida bass, as you say, is a different strain and it behaves differently. It's a strain that hates cold fronts. What is it about Florida and Florida bass that makes it so tough to be consistent?
It's the weather. It's the stability. As I mentioned before, you got to have stable weather for these fish to get comfortable and acclimated to it. Once they get 2 or 3 days of stable weather, and they feel that they can sense what it's doing, they know when it's time for them to feed. They know when it's time for them to spawn. And after the spawn, they're gonna feed. So it's perfect timing. You could have shad, you could have bluegill. So you have to keep everything a little bit on a sec. There possibly could be some brush pile fish and stuff like that. So you have to, in practice, you really have to search all depths, so to speak, to figure out where you're going to have your best results at, and hope that the thing is with brush piles, so many people got such good electronics now. Well, it becomes a boat race. You're a victim, or you're getting the best deal. Like if you get an early boat number, you get your pick. If you're late in the lineup, most all your stuff's going to be taken. So it's kind of like survival. If you get a late boat number, you have to survive that day. So whatever your best chance to survival, just to not get out of it, and then you'll have an early boat day coming up. So it's danged if you do, danged if you don't. But I think practice wise, you have to account for that. You have to. So if I get a bad boat number, I got to figure out a way to catch, 15, 16 pounds, whatever it may be.
So I'm guessing you're hoping for an early boat number on day one. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, if I had my choice on every tournament, I'd always want my early day the first day. But we don't have that choice. It's just luck of the draw, and I accept whatever I get, and I try to make the best of it.
Yeah, you've got to. And a lot of the places you're going to be fishing are probably, it's an isolated, very specific cast you're going to make, especially if you're talking about a brush pile. So establishing your presence, that you're there, you found it in practice on day one, is probably pretty critical, I guess.
Oh, it is. And then that's the other thing is, I'll be honest with you, the practice, you can, like I said, you can have the best practice in the world, but if you're not able to get on any of your stuff, it really takes the wind out of your sails, and then you're scrambling all day. And it's so easy to get spun out doing that. I've done it over here in the past. I don't know how many times, have a really good practice and then can't get on none of your good stuff. Man, it just pops that balloon inside of you, and then you're scrambling all day long. That's a miserable feeling, and I don't want to feel that this event. I want to start good and end well.
Well, okay, that brings up what to me is a very interesting point, because a lot of people think about Florida and 30-pound bags and giant double-digit fish and stuff like that, but a lot of pros prefer a grinder tournament where maybe it's going to be tougher. And there was a BASS tournament back in the 90s, 3 days on the Harris chain, took 14 pounds to win total.
Yes.
Over 3 days.
I remember those days.
Yeah. Would you prefer a grinder, Tim, or would you prefer, a slugfest out there?
For my own personal satisfaction, I would like a grinder. I wouldn't mind a blowout if I was the one doing the blowout, but I mean, honestly, I feel like my chances are better knowing what I know on this chain as a grinder.
Yeah, because I got to believe that no matter what the weather does, Tim Frederick's going to have 5 fish at the end of the day, and he's going to be able to cobble together a decent catch. Yeah.
When it's a grinder. Well, I appreciate that. When it's a grinder, one fish can change your whole outcome. Like one fish can carry you into the final day.
And you raise another great point there, because just part of the Bible of tournament fishing in Florida is that every day you're going to need a big fish. And if it is just a whack fest, you're going to need 2 or maybe 3 big fish.
That's correct.
Will you determine during practice whether this is going to be one of those tournaments that you're going to need 1 big fish a day or 2, or how will you make that determination?
100%. That I'll make my mind up after practice. It's usually after 2 days you can tell, all right, this, because if you've hit all your good stuff or what you think is good and it's not what you expected it to be, then it's pretty much a grinder, which I'm okay with either way. Everybody's going to have to catch them. And as you know, our field right now, buddy, it's stacked with hammers that like to beat the bank. I'm just telling you. It really is. It really is. A lot of shallow water experts in this deal.
I've been telling folks for a while now, since the list of the anglers competing in 2026 has come out. I think the NPFL has greater star power than any other league in the fishing world. And I can't wait to get the season started and see all you guys out there in action. And it's having one close to home. I mean, in your backyard and just about an hour away from me is going to be wonderful, because I know I'm going to learn a lot. Now, put you on the spot, Tim Frederick, because I'm always trying to get better at catching them in Florida. And a lot of people do struggle in Florida. Give me 2, 3, 4 tips general tips for Florida bass catching that maybe are not such a big deal in other parts of the country? And let me give you an example.
Okay. Well,
Go ahead. Yeah. I want to hear from
for
you.
one, from the months of, let's say, January 1 to mid-March, you can't fish slow enough. You can't.
Okay.
Fish are spawning. You know what they're doing. You're not always looking at spawning fish, but you can't fish it slow enough. That's one tip. Two is just keep up with the bait. Even during the spawn, if you know where the bait is, you can kind of keep up with the bass that way.
When you say bait, you're talking about the shiners or the shad or whatever it is, they're the bluegill, right?
Correct.
Gotcha.
To figure out what phase they're in. Are they spawning, or are they just hanging out in 6-foot eelgrass and Kissimmee grass? If you can find the bait, at some point during your tournament, you're going to be around the bass because they're going to feed.
Those are fantastic tips. And I've never heard them put quite that way. So thank you for that, Tim. All right.
Absolutely.
The way you were talking about how March is breaking down and there may be shad spawn, there may be bluegill on the beds. There will almost certainly be some largemouths on the beds at this point, especially with a new moon. It sounds to me like it's going to be a moving bait tournament. Or do you anticipate that a lot of flipping and punching are going to be a big factor?
I think both. I mean, I'm not just saying that to be cliche. I will be doing both. I'll promise you that. Like you said, if you, I'd say 10% of the bass still haven't spawned, and that's about it. But if they're gonna spawn, it's gonna be on this new moon. So for that, you're either gonna flip or you're gonna pitch, whatever your pleasure is. But also post-spawn fish, they love moving baits, you know, and I'm gonna be moved. I wish I had an odometer on my reel this week, because it's gonna be miles and miles of line brought in. Yes.
All right. I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you which baits you're going to throw exactly. I mean, I could hazard a guess or two, but I'm not going to do that to you. Instead, I want to pick your brain a little bit more about that pitch and punching, moving bait scenario. Do you think to win this tournament, a guy is going to have to mix that up, or do you think it's going to be maybe a hardcore pattern tournament where a guy can go out and throw a bladed jig or a spinnerbait or a swim jig, or a guy could go out and just punch? What do you think the mix is going to be?
I think 25% of your top 10 will be on one pattern.
Okay.
I think the rest of them will be multi-patterns versus moving baits versus flipping or punching, maybe even some topwater. There's another key thing here that we haven't discussed yet, but it's the Griffin locks.
Yes, sir.
If they open where it can space the field out, you got to remember, Griffin, that lock's been closed for almost a year. There hasn't been any tournament pressure over there other than small club tournaments. To me, that's the equalizer, honestly. Somebody said they were going to open on the 16th, but I've been hearing this stuff for months now. So I'll believe it when I see it. I hope it is. I mean, during pre-practice, I spent a lot of time over there. But, you know, not knowing leading into this tournament, it's hard to waste a day or two of your time over there trying to, you know, get a pattern or locating some fish. And then all of a sudden it's closed still. Well, you've wasted half your practice. So that's kind of a high risk, high reward type deal there. I mean, if it's open, I'm sure one day I'll be over there, because it just feels like those are less pressured fish right now. That would be a good starting spot to get you a solid limit in the boat where you're not going to lose on the first day.
There you go. Yeah, for the folks who are not from Florida, haven't fished Florida, when we talk about a chain of lakes down here, these lakes are often connected by canals, most of which were dug 100 years ago or more, because these are natural lakes. And if the lake levels are not identical, a lot of them are identical and you can just run your boat through the canal, but a lot of them are not. And so you've got to go through a lock. And sometimes these locks are open and sometimes they're not open. And sometimes the anglers will band together and they will slip the lock master some bucks and they'll try to make sure that the locks are moving freely. There's a lot of things that go on in these tournaments to try to make sure you have access to the water you want to fish. And Tim, as a veteran of the sport, you've played all these games.
Yes. And it's, like I said, it could be a great equalizer. If not, it's going to make the chain fish, just a little bit smaller. But we only got right at 120 boats, so I'm sure we'll all give each other space and stuff like that, But there's certain baits that I throw. I'll show you.
Yeah. Okay, folks. I put Tim on the spot here before we started recording. I said, "Man, I'd really like to see you. Let's play a little show and tell and show me a bait. Maybe it's not a bait that you think is going to be key this week, but maybe it is." So, Tim, what did you settle on?
Well, I'm old school Florida, so I have a devil's horse. It's a copy of the spotted ape devil's horse that a fellow named Brian Heberlin makes for us. This thing, it doesn't discriminate. It catches 10-inch fish and 10-pound fish. And typically when there's a lot of shad spawn, or it's not shad spawn, I'm sorry, bluegill plus bass fry, this thing will catch them. The only problem I'm seeing with it, which I don't think it's going to play a big factor this event, I could be wrong, but the only problem I'm seeing right now is our water is not very clear. Typically on top water, you want a little bit of visibility. I like to throw it. I got this one on braid with a 17-pound leader with an FG knot, and this, I can throw it a long ways. You can't throw it up in the slop or whatever, but on the edges, they love this thing. And I was still hoping that I get to throw it a little bit this week. But I'm just not sure if that water is going to be clear enough. But we're going to find out. I got it matched on a 7-foot Halo HFX series rod and a Corrado reel. Holds plenty of line, and you can throw it a long ways.
Well, I love that. I saw you've got your rod labeled horse. So is that all you throw on that rod?
That's all I throw on that one.
There you go, folks. The devil's horse. There are a lot of stereotypes about Florida fishing that Tim, I know, could regale us about. But a devil's horse is the standard for generations.
Yes,
we both knew a guy named Topwater Charlie Orm, who
yes,
for decades that was all Charlie Orm threw. And
that's all he threw.
Trucks. Well, later in life, he added a Senko to the mix.
Yeah, but, it had to be later. But I can tell you, I don't know how many boats he's won with that.
Yeah, unfortunately, he passed away a number of years ago.
Yeah, but I knew him very well, and Charlie he's the best I ever seen with it. I mean, he won a lot of events on that thing.
Remarkable. Now I'm going to give away a Florida secret here, Tim, because I want to get your comments on it.
All right.
I think one of the underrated things about Florida fishing, and I learned a lot of it from Charlie Orm, was I think part of Charlie Orm's gift with that bait was he had really good eyesight and he paid attention to detail. And if he saw a reed flicker, he could put that bait on it. And I think that a lot of people come to Florida from other parts of the country and they're not tuned in to watch a lily pad shake or a reed move. And they don't realize that when that happens, that could be a 10-pound bass.
Sure, down there spawning on the root system. Charlie was very patient with it too. Remember I said you can't fish slow enough? Well, I learned that from Charlie, because Charlie take 10 minutes working that bait in on one cast sometimes. If he believed there was a big fish right there, he let it soak. But more times than not, he caught him.
He was remarkable and deadly accurate with that thing. I mean, when you fish one bait for 40 years, which is what he did, you get pretty good with it.
Yes, he did. And Smithwick quit making that color. So me and a buddy of mine got together and we special ordered, I think, 300 of them. I don't have any of those left. So we got a buddy of mine that lives on the river over there, Brian Heberlin, and in fact, I don't think he's making his baits no more, but man, he did a great job cloning that bait. And I can't talk highly enough about him. In fact, it was a secret for a long time, but then everybody found out about it, so they started buying them from him. But he had a little bit of health issues, and he quit building them. But he's built a fine product. Yep.
Well, now we're going down the Devil's Horse rabbit hole here, Tim. This is dangerous territory. As you know well, because you knew Charlie so well, if Charlie got a gross of baits from Smithwick or Pradco, if he got 144 baits from them, maybe 25 or 30 would be good enough to throw in a tournament. Maybe.
You know your stuff. That's correct. He would float every one of them, see how they floated and how they acted in the water.
Yeah, if they didn't float high enough, he wouldn't mess with them. He would either give them away or use them only when fun fishing.
But that was the problem when we bought 300 of them.
Oh,
we probably found 40 of them that worked right, and we sold the rest of them.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said 25 out of 144. That would be high.
Well, no, that's probably pretty close. I mean, it probably is, but the guy that made them for us, he would float every one of them. He'd turn them on the lathe and paint them, and then he'd put the hardware on them, but he would temporarily put the hardware on to float them. Me and my buddy Larry, we like them a certain way, so he would float them like that, and then they were good. Once they were good, he sold them to us, and it was awesome. I love those things. All
right, now I'm gonna find out just exactly how messed up Tim Frederick is right here. Charlie Orm would fish. These baits are made of pine, which is very unusual in the bass lure world. Made of pine, and Charlie would fish them, and they would get water, and then he would basically discard them forever. Are you that picky about your horses?
I'm picky, but I'm not that picky. Ours are made of basswood. We didn't use pine. We used basswood on ours, but I will say this. A lot of times, if I'm really throwing that bait a lot, I'll have 2 or 3 of them rigged, because over time they'll get a little waterlogged and float a little different. So if you just lay it on the deck of your boat, it'll dry out and it'll be good to go in an hour. So we would just keep interchanging them.
You know, one of the things I've always loved about talking to top anglers like yourself, Tim, is just how far down these rabbit holes guys go, you know, whether it's how they rig a plastic worm or a leader knot or whatever. And that Devil's Horse stuff is about as hardcore as it gets.
It is. I mean, you got guys that build their own spinner baits and buzz baits that like everything a certain way. And I think that's great, because that just means you're tuned into your craft. You know how you like your bait to run, where you're confident with it. Because if you're throwing it and you're not confident in it, it's not going to catch them. It's weird. But I'm more like that with my lipless crankbaits. People laugh at me, you know, because I love to throw lipless. I love it. But I keep a sanding block in my boat. If I'm tying a new one on, I sand it. I scuff it all up. I take the shine off of it. I just don't. It looks unnatural when it's too shiny.
Even if it comes with a matte finish, you're still going to scuff it up?
A little bit. I don't have many that are matte. I don't have many that are matte finish, though. Most of them got too much shine, and I scuff them up a little.
All right,
I'm sure I'm not the only person that's ever done it.
Maybe not, but you're the first person I've heard talk about that.
That's all you're getting out of me.
Oh, man. I knew it. Well, all right. At least do this for me. One of these days, let's do an article on how you select, modify, and fish, and the combo you use on lipless crankbait.
Absolutely.
Can we do that?
We can. Absolutely.
Because there's just some things you have to do in Florida. You've got to throw a Devil's Horse. You've got to throw a lipless crankbait. You've got to swim a worm. You've got to drag a worm. And those things, if you can do those things in Florida effectively, you know, you're at least in the neighborhood and you're going to appeal to a lot of fish. And you got to be able
you can be very successful with those baits you just mentioned, even in this tournament. I mean, that's just the way it is. People forget about spinner baits since chatterbaits came out, but spinner baits will still catch them. I mean, chatterbaits just so much easier, I think.
And one thing I want to get your take on this, Tim, see if you agree with this, but one of the things I love about Florida is the same pattern bait technique that might win a tournament next week on the Harris chain with the NPFL could win a tournament in December or could win a tournament in July. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's facts. That's very fair. Especially, for example, like a lipless or a chatterbait. They're year-round baits. I mean, this just all there is to it. They're more effective at other times, and you might work them a little slower at other times, but 100%. 100%. Flipping as well. You can flip all year long.
All right. It's probably too early to ask this question and be fair, but give me a ballpark weight for what you think it might take to win out there. And I know it's early. We're still quite a ways away from first cast.
I'm probably going to be a little low, and that's because I know that all winter it's been fishing tough because of the weather conditions we've had. So I'm going to say, that's a great question. I'm going to say 59 pounds.
See, I'm fascinated to talk with you about this stuff, Tim, because I did some checking a couple of years ago. I checked all the big tournaments that have been held in Florida for decades. Mm-hmm. We're talking about thousands of angler days on the water. And I could count on one hand, or maybe just two hands, the number of times guys had brought in 20 pounds every day of a tournament. They might have 30 pounds or 33 pounds or 35 pounds one day, but then there would be a day when they would come in with 15 or 17.
Yep.
And then maybe bounce back with 27, 28. Wild swings, even among the guys who are winning.
That's kind of what I'm counting on. And I'll tell you my logic. I think someone will catch a big bag, whether it's 25 to 27 pounds the first day. Second day, they might have 17 pounds. The third day, when they're in the top 10, they get a super long day.
Right.
They can risk and reward, so they can go try to catch another 25-pound bag. I think 59 is a good number. I hope I'm wrong, but I think that's going to be a pretty fair number. I don't think it'll be 20, and 19. I think it'll be a big bag, a medium bag, and then another decent bag.
I think you're spot on, man. It's so tough to do 20 pounds every day of a 3-day tournament in Florida. So tough. I mean, that would be.
If you gave that to me right now, I'd just say, I'm good. Leave me at that. I would take my chances.
If I can give you 59, you'd sleep in?
I would. Whatever. I'm getting paid. 59, I know I'm going to get paid.
59, you're getting paid, but I think you're going to do better than 59. I think Tim Frederick is going to weigh in more than 59 pounds over the 3 days of this Derby on the Harris chain. That's my prediction.
I hope you're right, buddy. I hope to not disappoint you.
Well, hey, man, I cannot thank you enough, Tim. You're an amazing guest. You're so knowledgeable, so insightful, got such great history on the sport and the techniques and the methods. You've been a delight, sir. And I will see you beforehand, but all the luck in the world in the Harris chain.
Well, thank you very much, Ken. It's my honor, and I'm glad I got to do this with you. And we will do an article. We'll get together.
Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen for the NPFL readers.
We'll do it, buddy.
Appreciate it, Tim. You take care.
Take care. Y'all have fun.
Hey, there you heard, folks, from Tim Frederick, long-time Florida guy, Leesburg guy, host of the city hosting the event. Is where Tim calls home. He gets to sleep in his own bed. That's got to be an advantage right there. But one of the best, one of the most enjoyable guys to visit with, one of the most knowledgeable Florida guys I know. So thanks to Tim Frederick. I'm expecting big things from him in this Derby.
Nick Morrison, Wolf Branch Brewing at 707 West Main Street in Leesburg. Wolf Branch Brewing is a local craft brewery. They started over in Eustis. It's been about 8 years since they started that one. Since then, we've grown locally. We got 3 locations. It's good beer, good times, good people. You can't go wrong at any location, really. I would say that we do our best job at our dark beers. The porter that we have on, the stout that we have on, they're both delicious, and usually that's a very strong part of our selection is the darker beers. The weekends are always a little busier, so like if you come in on like a Friday night, it's usually you're gonna have a decent crowd in here. We got a lot of regulars that consistently come in during Friday, so you'll always have a pretty fun little crowd in here. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Wolf Branch Brewing, and if you're in Leesburg, come on through, guys, have a beer, have some food, it's a good time.
My next guest is one of the young guns in the NPFL. As a matter of fact, he may be the best young gun in 2025. And leading into 2026, everybody's expecting really big things out of him. But you know what? This guy, even though he's very young, he's kind of got an old soul and an old school way of doing things with his bass fishing that I think y'all are going to appreciate. He's a Florida guy, got some interesting theories about Florida bass fishing. And of all places, he lists the Harris Chain of Lakes as his favorite fishery in the whole world. Welcome, Joey Bloom. Joey, thanks for joining us on Roundtable.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. I'm super excited to be on it.
Well, don't be, because I'm going to make you give up all kinds of cool information that may cost you tournaments.
Oh, well, sometimes the cat's got to get out of the bag.
There you go. That's the spirit. That's what I never hear from bass pros. But you're a different kind of bass pro, a new generation bass pro. And, man, you have established in 2 years in the NPFL that you can catch them. You have done really, really well, and you've certainly impressed me and anybody else who's watching. So kudos to you, sir, on the track record you've already established.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I mean, it's been a really awesome 2 seasons with the NPFL. Going into it, my first season, I didn't think I was going to be nearly any good enough to be in it in Angler of the Year points, and ended up finishing 13th. And I was like, whoa, like, let's see how it keeps going. And then, qualified for my first championship, fished the 2025 season, made another championship. So it's just been an awesome 2 seasons, man, and just love it.
Yeah, it's very impressive. Yeah, your first year, as you say, 13th in AOY as a rookie. Last year, not quite as high in the standings, but a lot of that can be attributed to the fact that the field just got a lot of talent in it. And of course, there's even more talent coming this year. So I don't envy you or anybody else in the league for the guys you've got to beat to stay up in the standings and qualify for championships.
Oh, it's hard. I mean, everybody that is fishing is an absolute hammer. I mean, every single person there can catch them. And one tournament can literally decide whether you're going to make the next championship or not. And, last season, Eufaula was the one that almost put the nail in the coffin for me. I mean, day one, I had 6 pounds and I was in 90th. And then I didn't know what I was going to do on day 2 and just went fishing on day 2 and ended up catching almost 16 pounds and finished 29th. So it's just like, it can happen.
Well, I don't want to go too deep into the weeds into that, but you know what? That kind of performance is the kind of thing that shows me, as a longtime serious follower of the sport, that you have a real career and that you are a true bass fishing professional. Because everybody's going to have the tournaments where they stumble on some fish, they do pretty well. Maybe once every couple of seasons, they put themselves in a high position to win. But when you can salvage a bad tournament, that to me is the difference between a guy who's got staying power and just your average guy who calls himself a bass pro.
Yeah. And especially after having a bad day one, you go back to your room or your hotel and you just kind of sit there and you're like, man, like I just dropped the ball. Like, I don't know what happened. And you can either take that and leverage it and do good the next day and just go out with a clean mind, or you could take it and just think about day one while you're fishing on day 2, and it could ruin you. And, I just decided, I was like, I'm just going to go fishing because I just don't know what can happen, and ended up doing really well. Well,
you're a young man, born in the 2000s, which blows me away.
Yeah.
But we talk about, I said you were kind of an old soul, an old school kind of guy, and that comes from your dad, doesn't it?
Yeah, no. So my dad, growing up fishing with my dad, I kind of chuckle a little bit because all he did was fish the bank. So I would always look out into the middle of the lake and I'm like, hey, Dad, is there any fish out there? And he's like, oh, no, there's no fish out there. They all live on the bank. And I'm like, I don't know about all that. And we'd go back to weigh in, especially on the Harris chain. We'd go to weigh in, and these guys would drop 20 something pounds, and we'd weigh in our 11 pounds. And he's like, oh, they must have called him flipping. And I'm like, I don't know about that, Dad. We flipped miles of shoreline and didn't get a bite. So, like, I don't know if they did that.
Your dad, Nate, it was his dream at one time when he was your age to be a bass pro.
Yeah.
And because he wanted to be a responsible parent and husband, he decided to put all that on the back burner and go out and make a great living. And I know he's your biggest supporter. He travels with you a lot. I rarely go to an NPFL event that I don't run into Nate Bloom. And it's always a joy because the man is a student of the game. It's got to be a great thing to have a dad who's so supportive and who's so knowledgeable. Is it a challenge for you to develop your own style?
Yes and no. I would say yes, it's a challenge just because of the fact that I still like to fish the way that I fished growing up. But as we come into, the technology age and everything that's going on, you have to kind of develop your own style and think outside the box to compete. I mean, it's kind of like you got to look at both sides of the coin. I mean, you got to just kind of either keep growing or just stay behind. And I like to do kind of a mix of both because I feel like either way you can win doing both.
And you're talking about old school, new school. A lot of that these days seems to center around forward-facing sonar. And I want to point out to everybody that when the NPFL still allowed forward-facing sonar, Joey Bloom was 13th in AOY. When the NPFL banned forward-facing sonar, and talent like Greg Hackney and Gerald Swindle and Kyle Welcher and anybody else you want to name was in the league, he still finished 31st in AOY and qualified for yet another championship. So this guy can catch him no matter what technology is involved, no matter what the circumstances, and no matter where you go. And that brings me to this one, Joey. You live in Winter Springs, Florida, Central Florida. You're I would think that your home water is the St. Johns River, but your favorite body of water on the whole planet is
the Harris chain.
The Harris chain of lakes. I don't even know many Florida guys who would say that, Joey.
Well, so I live about 10 minutes from Lake Jessup, and anybody that knows Lake Jessup, they call it, Alligator Alley because it's just all alligators. And I swear to you, I don't think a bass swims in it, but it's about that deep everywhere. And this, I just swear there's no bass in it, but I fished it a million times. But growing up, we always went to the Harris chain. It was always one of my favorite places to my dad was like, hey, we're going to go hop in this tournament. We're going to the Harris chain. And I was so excited. I just don't know. There was just so many different lakes on the chain. There was so many different things that I could do and fish. And, it was just always a cool experience.
Vegetation.
Yeah. Well, there was.
That's a shot at Lake Jessup and sections of the St. Johns River. Speaking of the St. Johns and Lake Jessup, I've got a buddy who lives out in the Titusville area. And whenever I'm talking to him, I call his home the Bass Desert. And that's unfortunate, but so a lot of your style was developed on the Harris chain, a lot of your skills. Yeah.
And, it was one of those deals where I just really loved fishing out there, whether we did good or not. I got to flip and throw a swim jig and throw a frog and, throw a spinner bait and a chatter bait and drag a Carolina rig, which is one of my favorite baits and techniques to catch them, hands down.
Amazing that there's a guy in his early 20s who's one of his favorite techniques is the Carolina rig. And I asked Joey to bring his setup for that. And I think he's going to blow some minds when he starts talking about the combo and the gear he uses to throw a Carolina rig, because it certainly shocked me.
Yeah. So I got the rod right here, but I use a 7.5 heavy, and I normally keep my leaders depending on if I'm fishing current. I really like a long leader. So I'll do it anywhere from 3 to 4.5, 5 foot leader, just because I want that flow. especially in heavy current situations. But if I'm not fishing current or anything, like if I'm dragging it, hopping it through grass or brush, I normally keep it like 2 foot. But I use, now this is what we were talking about a little while ago, but I use straight big game mono as my main line. And the reason for that is I would break off on braid to fluoro and fluoro to fluoro. And I've used so many fluorocarbon brands, and they're all great. But I would just break off. I mean, I set the hook a little too hard sometimes. But what I learned with the straight mono to fluoro leader was that when I would reel down and hook one that had so much stretch that it would, once it hit the fluorocarbon leader that didn't have a whole lot of stretch, I felt like it drove that hook into him a lot better. And you know, fishing brush and things like that are real sticky and can break you off. Like, I didn't really have that worry in my mind that when I set the hook and a big one eats it, that I was going to break it off in a brush pile. Because anybody that's used 20-pound big game, like, it doesn't break at all. But
there's that. Well, that's exactly counterintuitive to what I think of when I think about a Carolina rig. I think of either braid to fluoro or braid to mono or fluoro to fluoro or possibly fluoro to mono. And the reason I think of the fluoro or braid on the main line is you gain something in sensitivity, I hope.
Yeah.
You gain something by not having the stretch. You're going to have a more direct connection, and you're going to be able to set the hook better, because often you're making a super long cast. Often there's a long distance between your swivel and your hook. So you've got a lot of line you need to move before you start penetrating that bass's mouth with the hook. And so I'm not thinking about monofilament at all. But your point about you're breaking off a lot of fish, I get it. That's the solution, of course. Or maybe to go to heavier braid or something, or bigger fluoro.
Yeah, no, and I felt like too, like when you use braid to fluoro, like, and not every situation you get a perfect situation. I mean, you know, where you make a long cast and a fish eats it way out there, and you have a lot of time to reel up and set the hook, and it's not as much, you know, like close combat versus, like, there's been situations where I've drug it and they eat it like right at the boat, and I mean, what do you do there? I mean, you have two solutions. You pop the bail and you let them swim off with it, or you reel down and set the hook. And I felt like the ones that ate it so close to the boat, I would always reel down and set the hook and break them off if I used straight braid to fluoro or fluoro to fluoro, because it was just so much going on so close. And it just felt like a weak point for me. So I ended up doing that a while ago. And, you know, I haven't had any issues with it. And I'm sure there'll be people that are like, oh, what is he talking about? But it's just something I do. And it's something that has caught a lot of big fish for me. And I haven't lost a whole lot of fish doing it.
Well, I love it because you found what works for you. And I think that not enough casual fishermen, guys who don't get to spend as much time on the water as a professional angler, don't try enough different things. Just because it works for, you know, Greg Hackney or Gerald Swindle or Joey Bloom doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So you should maybe try bits and pieces of what they're doing until you figure out what's going to work for you. And I love that's what you've done. Okay, so I get it. The mono gives you the stretch you need. You're not breaking off as many fish. I also know, because we've spoken about it just a little bit, and I want you to go into it deeper now, I also know that you like flotation in your bait. You like a plastic worm or a lizard or whatever you might be throwing to have some lift to it. And yet you use a fluorocarbon leader, and fluorocarbon sinks.
Yeah. So I use a bait cave drop worm for my, as my, you know, my main bait that I like to throw. I know a lot of people like throwing craws and stuff like that on the back, but the thing about, I'm losing my rod here, but the thing about this worm is that it floats. So, you know, if you look at a Carolina rig and kind of like what it does in the water, if you've ever thrown it in a pool or just like crystal clear water and seen it, like, it does nothing. I mean, it literally is just on the bottom and it just drags.
It's just dragging. Yeah. People don't realize
Yeah, there's no action. There's just nothing. I mean, it's a do nothing.
Unless it hits a stick or something and lifts up.
Yep, and you use the rod, you pop it out, and then it floats back down. But the reason why I like throwing the floating stuff, especially this worm, is that I feel like when you get in those situations where you're fishing like, brush or grass, like, whether it's tall grass or short grass, whatever it is, like when it floats, it'll keep it just right where you want it in the strike zones, versus being buried in the grass. And then you have to do all this work in the bait and everything to get it out and get them to bite. And I feel like because it floats, it kind of just sits up right where the fish are, so that every drag that you have, you're always inside of the strike zone, and they're there to eat it, and they're always there. Like, so when I went to Hartwell, I threw this in the championship, and I caught a lot of my fish on it on points because, a lot of those points there had rock and stuff on it, and I felt like it was keeping it above the rock, so I wasn't getting, buried in the rocks with my bait. My bait wasn't going in the cracks or crevices. It was always staying above it because it was floating. So I feel like that's a really good thing for me that I had going with the Carolina rig. And I feel like a lot of people just don't throw a worm that floats a whole lot.
Well, you shocked me because you said the Carolina rig is your favorite technique, and that style worm is your favorite bait. And that told me you're at least 30 years older than you say you are.
Yeah, I never leave home without it. Whether I throw it or not in a tournament, it's always on the front deck of my boat. I mean,
wow.
We could be anywhere. Like, I threw it in the St. Lawrence River. I threw it in Eufaula, Oklahoma. Well, even though we caught them in bushes, I threw it anyway, just to see if I got bit. I mean, it just.
And even though the watercolor is like chocolate milk at Eufaula.
Yeah, when we got there, I was pretty sure we landed on Mars.
Actually, I should say strawberry milk. It looked really a lot like strawberry milk.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was going to do when we got there.
Well, now,
never fished anything like it.
And you're a Florida guy too. So how much of your Florida game is the Carolina rig?
Oh man, I throw it all the time, like every day.
Okay, let's dial in on that bait, because it's a straight tail worm, similar to the Zoom trick worm, but you say it's the bait cave drop worm.
Yep.
And it floats. Am I right? You said it floats.
Yep.
What kind of hook are you using to keep it up?
So I use a 3/0 Hayabusa, just regular worm hook, just straight shank worm hook. And depending on what I'm fishing, I'll either use a heavy duty or I'll just use the regular light wire one. I like using the light wire one a lot because I feel like it makes it float a lot better.
Sure, lighter hook. Yeah.
But you get into situations where you're fishing, really thick cover or whatever, and these fish get big in Florida. So you don't want to have a super light wire hook on something that you're setting the hook as hard as you can on, and you bend it out and then you miss a big one. And I mean, that's just how the story goes. But I like throwing those style hooks on them. If I go into a bigger worm, I'll throw a 5/0, maybe even a 6. I never throw a wide gap hook. I feel like that's one of the hooks that I just never had confidence in, is a wide gap.
I'm going to throw something at you. I'd love to get your take on it. I think that especially in Florida, guys use hooks that are too big, and that a smaller hook in Florida will serve you well because it'll keep you out of trouble, maybe to a degree.
Yeah. I mean, you get these big speed worms. Florida's a staple for a speed worm, and they get a Magnum speed worm and they think that they got to put this giant 7/0 hook through it. And like, I'll throw a 4 or 5/0 hook in it just because the fish in Florida like to do this thing where they grab it by the tail, and then they like to just hold it, and then they swim around in circles with it forever, and then they eat it. I don't know what the deal is with that. I don't know if they just know that, they're just messing with you or what, but like, I just have a feeling that they just don't. I feel like when you get into an area and there's so many fish there, they grab it and they run away as far as possible to get away from all the other competition. So I feel like the less weight, the bigger hook, like once they feel that big hook, and, you know, especially when they're eating it weird, I feel like they get kind of used to it and they just spit it out, or they'll drop it, or they won't eat it as good as you would a smaller hook.
Gotcha. Now going back to the Carolina rig a little bit, I'm going to take myself out of the shot here. Can you show us your weight, your swivel? Have you got a bead in there? Take us through that setup.
I don't throw any beads, but I just do a regular 1/2 ounce tungsten, regular weight with just a regular barrel swivel, and I keep about, I'd say 2 to 2.5 foot a leader just to that trick worm. And I mean, it's done me good, man. I mean, I've caught a lot of big fish on it, and you know, I feel like this is a very underrated rig that not a lot of people throw much anymore, and it just catches giants. I mean, it always does. It's always caught big fish for me.
Is this a 12-month out of the year rig for you?
Unless they're spawning. That's the biggest thing for me, is like, I get it. A lot of fish, you're hearing a lot of talk now about fish spawning out deeper and, you know, things that are happening with fish. But I feel like when it comes to the spawn, the fish push up so hard and so fast that it's very difficult to get a bite doing that, unless you're, you know, chasing after post-spawn fish or pre-spawn fish. But, you know, in Florida, we get these massive waves of spawning fish that they just go up at once. And when they're up, they're up. And that's really the only time I don't throw it as much.
In Florida, where most of the time, I think it's fair to say, we're fishing less than 10 feet of water.
Yeah.
How heavy a sinker do you like in that
For the
situation?
Carolina rig?
Yeah.
1/2 ounce.
1/2 ounce?
I still like a 1/2 ounce because I feel like it's heavy enough to keep it on the bottom, but it's still light enough that it's not like overdoing it, you know?
And you have no buffer between your sinker and the knot on your swivel?
Nope.
Oh, I'm gonna show people something here if I can find it. I don't know if anybody's gonna care because I'm not Joey Bloom, but I found these. Friend of mine, Ron Stallings, works for TTI Blakemore, and they have these things called catfish bumpers or something like that. And these things I have used to not to replace the bead, but to come in between the bead and the hook. And if you can see it, it's got a little hole in it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's rubberized. It's not going to be destroyed no matter how many times you use it, throw it. And it cushions that knot, which I always thought was valuable, but you don't worry about the knot. You just make sure you retie enough, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I throw beads in certain situations. Like if they're eating crawfish or something on the bottom like that, then I'll put a bead on. But a lot of the fish in Florida, I feel like they eat, you know, they're shad eaters, bluegill eaters, shiners, you know, any crappie, they eat crappie. So it's just like, I feel like that's more of a predominant fish that they eat. So they don't really do a whole lot of that clacking and loud noise.
Right.
So I just try to keep it as subtle as possible. And, I mean, it's worked for me. And I'm sure that, you know, the bead in Florida works. Not something that I really put on my baits.
You know, I think taking the noise out of a presentation sometimes is as valuable as adding it. I mean, lipless crankbaits for years, they've rattled like crazy. And we all know that occasionally the bass don't want it, especially if the water's clear. So I think that's a very smart play on your part. I'm a slave to convention, Joey Bloom. It's sad, really. Whereas you're out there taking the best of what your dad taught you, a lot of techniques he picked up in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, and you're applying them now in the 2020s to great effect. That's fantastic. All right, let's talk Harris chain a little bit. I just talked to your buddy, Tim Frederick, not long ago, and he gave me a prediction for what it might take to win there. And I know it's too early to really say because, folks, this tournament is more than a week away, more than a week away right now as Joey and I record this. So it's a little bit tough to make an estimate because we don't know exactly what the weather's going to do. But I want to see where your take is relative to Tim's. What do you think it might take to win?
3 days. Oh, dude, I don't even know. It's one of those tournaments where it could take huge weights or it could just be really tough. So I'm gonna say like mid 60s.
Okay.
Like 64.
I'll tell you that when I spoke to Tim told me that if I had the power to give him 59 pounds, he'd sleep in.
Oh yeah. Oh, honestly, I'm going to agree with him on that because it's what.
But you want to win. You want to win.
I do want to win, but I think that 59 pounds right now in the current state of the Harris chain is like really like your odds are really high to win.
Okay.
And I don't say that just because of the fishing. I say that just because of we get a lot of pressure on the Harris chain. I mean, over the past couple years, it's just been like back to back to back tournaments. And I wasn't really a big believer in like pressure. Like I felt like just there's so many fish out there that it's like, I mean, certain areas might get pressured and stuff, but like you're seeing it more and more. Like the fishing is getting tougher and tougher and tougher out there. And it's just that was a good prediction by Tim. I really agree with him on that. 59 pounds is solid.
Okay, I want to take you back more than a year to a tournament that was supposed to happen but didn't. A tournament on the St. John's out of DeLand that got canceled because 2 hurricanes blew through and just messed up everything. And it was necessary to cancel because it simply would not have been safe. The water levels rose to dangerous heights. And but I hated that all that happened because Joey Bloom was on him.
Yeah, so I went out the 3 days that the tournament were supposed to go out and caught like over 32 pounds a day. So every day that I went out those 3 days, I just like my heart just shattered into a million pieces every day. I was like, this sucks. But it was a really bad hurricane. It really messed up that Georgia area. And it's still getting fixed today. I mean, there's still things that are destroyed from that hurricane. So it was a really good call on the NPFL to cancel that. And it sucks the tournament didn't go on, but you know what? I mean, we're back in Florida. It's going to be good weather.
Looks like it. Looks like it's going to be warm and steady. Okay. But I got to ask it. You're fishing your favorite body of water. You're fishing the body of water where you learned so much about bass fishing, spent so much time out there with your dad. Where does Joey Bloom have to finish to call this a successful event?
I would like a top 10. A top 10 for me would be, I would like to win. That's the goal. Every person out there would love to win. And to win on your home body of water is really hard. Especially when you have too much knowledge like I do. Like I've spent every breathing second on the Harris chain for years and years. And a top 10 for me would, I would walk away and say, that was a really good tournament. I had a good time. Even a top 15 or top 20, like I'd still be like, okay, that was, I had a good showing. But, in my mind, anything less than that would be a little upsetting for me.
I hear you. And I totally get that. You haven't had a top 10 yet in the NPFL. You've come very close several times. You've got multiple top 20s. But to get a top 10 at home, I know that would mean more. Are you feeling the pressure because you are a pre-tournament favorite to do really well out there?
No, not really. I mean, I guess it really hasn't kicked in yet that I'm going out and fishing a big major tournament out there. But over my fishing career so far, like I used to get spun out real quick when I was, a lot younger and fishing bigger tournaments. And the NPFL has changed the way that I fish these past couple seasons. And the old me that used to worry now doesn't. I just go out there and go fishing. And, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. I can't make anything happen. I just got to go out there and fish as hard as I can and just do the right things all day and, in my mind, and do the right things. And you just got to see where the cards lie.
Joey Bloom, 23 years old, setting the tournament trail on fire and leading off the 2026 season on his favorite body of water. That's pretty awesome. You had to be excited when you saw that on the schedule.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, when I first saw the schedule, it actually was on Instagram, and it was on like slide 3 for stop 3 or whatever. And I was looking through them, and I'm like, oh man. I was like, I guess we're not going to Florida. I went to the first one, and I was like, oh my God, we're going to Florida. And I saw it was on the Harris chain, and man, I was just so excited. And I've kept a lot of secrets on that place for a long time. And I was just telling my dad a little while ago, like, I'm going to fish everything. So secrets are not going to be broken.
All right. Last question I got to hit you with now, because you kind of broached it there a little bit. Got a lot of secrets out there, got a lot of experience out there. Is it easier, better to start a tournament knowing that you have 500 places and 500 techniques that might work? Or is it easier when you know 5 places that are going to play?
5 places. 100%. And that's a lot of the success I've had in the NPFL has been because I've never been to these places. So like, I don't have any expectations versus the Harris chain. Like, I look back at all my memories on my phone and, my pictures, and it's just like, there's so many good days I've had. So the expectation for me is high, but at the same time, it's like, it's a completely different fishery now from it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I mean, a lot has changed. I mean, especially like guys that haven't been here in 5-6 years, and that are coming back and fishing it. Like, it's definitely not the same.
Tremendous amount of experience coming back, and looking through the field and the track records there, it's shocking. Almost everybody in this 119 angler field has fished at least one big national tournament on the Harris chain. And the other thing that made an impression on me, Joey, was although some guys have a pretty nice track record out there, nobody's spotless. For every top 10, they've got a 60th or 142nd. What is it about Florida that is so confounding?
So the thing about Florida is it's very easy to get lost. Like, when I mean lost is like, you find these fish, you're very confident that you're going to go out there and have either a decent tournament, or you're going to win, or you're going to do good, whatever it is. And they just like to do this thing where they pack everything and then they leave. And they do it all the time. So, once that happens, especially like you said, like if you only have 5 areas and all 5 of your areas don't work, then it's like panic mode. I mean, what do you do? And, one of the best things that I learned about Florida fishing growing up is if you would just throw the trolling motor over and just literally just go fishing, like, you're going to run into them. Like, they don't go far. It's not like they've picked up and they swam all the way across the lake and they're gone. Like, they move very weird. And I feel like the void of nothingness, like, oh, I don't want to go fish 200 yards that way because I didn't get bit. Well, they could be 200 yards that way today. If they're not there, I mean, they could be 200 yards each way and they just move. And so I feel like a lot of anglers get caught up in fishing that moment. They need to just kind of just go and expand if it's not working out. They need to just continue to fish down the stretches that they didn't get bit in, because they might get bit in it and it might pay off for them. It's almost like leaving something on the table.
Feels a little bit unusual for an old guy like me to say, I know the experience of this 23-year-old angler is going to really pay off next week at the Harris chain, but I do know that. And I think you're going to have a great tournament. And one thing is certain, that it will not be over until you weigh in. You're going to be a threat out there. All the luck in the world to you, Joey.
I appreciate it, man. I'm very excited that we're going out on the Harris Chain. It's honestly one of the most beautiful chain of lakes out there. It's got restaurants. It's got you got downtown Mount Dora. It's beautiful. I mean, there's just so many different things you can do, and that's why it's one of my favorite lakes. You know, aside from the bass fishing, it's just always good to get out there, and it's just so pretty everywhere you go. I mean, it's just different sceneries. Each lake is completely different. You know, if you go over to Griffin, it's like old Florida. You go to Eustis, it's like kind of like suburban-y, and then you go to Dora, and it's like city. It's like it's just really cool to be out there and fish there all the time, and especially like having my friends and family show up, and they're going to be watching, and you know, I'm in my home state, and it's just a really cool feeling, whether I do good or not.
Well, I think you're going to do great. And yeah, when all those things come together, that's very special. Best of luck to you, sir. Go get 'em.
I appreciate it.
All right, that's going to do it with Joey Bloom, folks. And this is a guy who's a real threat to win on the Harris Chain, or pretty much anywhere else the NPFL goes. Joey Bloom catches him. Hey, that's going to do it for this edition of Roundtable. Come on back out tomorrow. We're going to have another show with two fabulous guests, and you're going to learn more about the Harris Chain of Lakes than you thought possible. Some amazing stuff about world record bass and the Harris Chain of Lakes. So that's tomorrow on Roundtable. Meanwhile, don't forget that the competition starts Thursday, the 19th of March at 3 o'clock. You can tune in for the live weigh-in where Big Al McCulloch is going to bring the boom. If you don't know what the boom is, check it out. He's the very best at that, at weigh-ins and tournaments and creating excitement and showing you just what big-time bass fishing is all about. We're going to see some big fish, I think, at the Harris Chain. Hopefully see some good catches. This cold front that's coming in might be a factor. We're going to learn beginning Thursday on day one of the tournament. And then on Friday and Saturday, not only will you have the live weigh-ins with Big Al at 3 p.m., but on Friday and Saturday, days 2 and 3 of the tournament, beginning at 9 a.m. Eastern, live coverage from Luke and Fat Cat. Luke Duncan and Fat Cat Newton are the very best at bringing you that. They bring the insight. They bring the humor. They take the sport seriously, but they don't take themselves too seriously. That's just part of what I love about those guys. They are the best. No exaggeration, no question, no competition. So that's coming right up. Thursday's day one of the tournament. Runs Friday, runs Saturday. Live weigh-ins all 3 days at 3 p.m. Last 2 days, Friday and Saturday, we got live coverage with Luke and Fat Cat. Do not miss it. Come on back tomorrow for more Roundtable. My name again is Ken Duke, and I will see you then.